South Africa is a country at the continent's southernmost tip. Diverse peoples, languages, and religions have met here. Large mineral deposits lie underground. A regime of racial segregation emerged and then collapsed here. For many years, it dictated where people could live and work. Today, the country remains one of the region's strongest economies. However, it faces high unemployment, severe inequality, and power outages. South Africa's history is crucial for understanding modern Africa. It also shows why reforms need much time and trust in institutions. Before Europeans arrived, South Africa was home to black hunter-gatherers. Later, farming communities lived there. Each had unique traditions and languages. In the 17th century, Dutch settlers landed at the Cape of Good Hope. They eventually called themselves Afrikaners. They built farms, expanded settlements, and traded. However, they also displaced neighbors and imposed their rules. During the colonial era, Afrikaans emerged. It blended Dutch with local and imported languages. Early conflicts and agreements laid the groundwork for land and power disputes. In the early 19th century, British rule began in South Africa. This intensified rivalry with the Afrikaners. The British changed laws and fortified ports. They sought control of inland territories. There, Afrikaners formed their own republics. Tensions built for decades. By the late 19th century, they erupted into a major war. This led to the subjugation of Boer republics. London's influence grew. Rich mining areas joined the imperial system. This outcome shaped South African politics and power dynamics for a long time. During the war in South Africa, British authorities established camps for civilians. Conditions were harsh. Food and medicine were scarce. Tens of thousands of women and children died from disease and starvation. This tragedy deeply traumatized the Afrikaners. It heightened their distrust of London. The memory of these camps became part of their collective identity. It argued for an independent path after the war. This experience explains why some later supported strict domestic policies. They also feared external pressure on the nation. In the late 19th century, large diamond and gold deposits were found in South Africa. Cities quickly grew around the mines. These included the future main business hub. Railways, banks, and major companies emerged. People from various regions were recruited for work. Yet, access to top jobs and housing depended on origin, not skill. This formed a system where income and status distribution was fixed by policy. Later, these practices became official segregation laws. They formally legalized existing inequality. South Africa is linked to racism and apartheid. In the early 20th century, a union of territories formed there. It was under the British Crown. The country then gained significant autonomy. In the late 1940s, a party took power. It established separate development as state policy. Decades of restrictions followed. These included separate districts, schools, and hospitals. Hiring rules also varied. The goal was to keep privileges for one group. It also controlled other residents, movement, and labor. This model spread through cities and rural areas. It dictated the daily lives of millions. The South African system enforced strict rules. Black people needed passes to live and work in cities. Whole neighborhoods were deemed, quote, unsuitable. Families were then relocated to distant areas. So-called homelands were created. These offered a semblance of self-rule but lacked real rights. Millions lost their homes, jobs, and community ties. Resettlements reshaped city layouts. Distances to transport, schools, and hospitals increased. Traces of these decisions remain visible today. Many poor areas are far from job centers and poorly connected. The African National Congress emerged in South Africa in the early 20th century. It long sought equal rights through peaceful means. After a demonstration was fired upon in the early 60s, repression intensified. Leaders were jailed, and part of the movement went underground. Strikes, boycotts, and campaigns then arose. These informed the world about the ongoing events. Despite arrests and pressure, activists maintained ties between working-class areas. They developed a mutual aid network and pushed for universal elections. A central demand became the repeal of apartheid laws. In the 1980s, external pressure on South Africa grew. International organizations condemned apartheid. Many nations restricted trade and loans. South African sports teams were banned from tournaments. Artists canceled shows. Universities and foundations ended cooperation. These measures did not solve the problem instantly, yet they raised the cost of isolation. They weakened the government's stance and strengthened calls for talks. Internal resistance and external limits together pushed the country towards dialogue. They discussed a future constitution and elections. In the early 90s, South African authorities released prominent leaders. They agreed to talks on a new constitution. The parties discussed general elections, minority rights, and security roles. They sought to avoid civil war. The first general elections were held in late April 1994. A politician, long imprisoned, became president. The country then pursued reconciliation, amnesty, and reforms. This gave voting rights to all and secured a lawful transfer of power. A commission was created in South Africa to address past crimes. It was led by a known church figure. It listened to victims and perpetrators, gathering documents. Amnesty was granted to those who fully admitted guilt. The work lasted for years. Many stories were first heard publicly. The commission did not replace courts without confessions. It did not heal all wounds, but it built a common factual record. This helped start a dialogue on justice. It also reduced the risk of new violence. The nation maintained its path toward a peaceful transition. After its transition to democracy, South Africa's economy became more open. Services, construction, and mining grew. Ties with neighbors and other continents strengthened. However, income disparity remains very high. Wealthy areas have private schools and security. Poor neighborhoods lack jobs and doctors. The state launched programs to broaden economic participation for excluded groups. But significant differences in education and capital access persist. These hinder progress toward equal opportunities. High violent crime remains a major challenge in South Africa. Police lack staff and equipment. Investigations are slow. Wealthier residents hire private security. Periodic anti-migrant violence erupts. This happened in the late 2000s and mid-2010s. This adds tension to poorer areas. Authorities boost investigator training. They modernize communications. Youth programs are also supported. Yet trust in services returns slowly. South Africa faced a severe HIV epidemic. In the early 2000s, many families lost providers. Hospitals were overwhelmed. Top leadership long denied the problem scale. This slowed the initial response. The state gradually expanded access to antiviral therapy. Life expectancy began to rise. Testing, support for pregnant women, and work with teenagers are vital. New cases still emerge. Treatment must be maintained, and stigma fought. Since the late 2000s, South Africans have faced regular rolling blackouts. Power plants aged, while maintenance and management lagged. In the 2010s, probes revealed private interests influenced state contracts and procurement. This was termed state capture. Commissions detailed these schemes and proposed reforms. Laws were passed to attract private power generation and upgrade grids. Though blackouts have decreased notably in recent years, disruptions still occur. Trust is rebuilding slowly. South Africa is chosen for its nature, safaris, ocean coast, and cities by mountains and sea. Tourism creates jobs in hotels, transport, and parks. Some revenue supports conservation and infrastructure. The future depends on lower unemployment, better schools, and stable energy. Potential exists in mineral processing for batteries and in wind and solar development. Yet, growth will be slow without honest governance and security. If interested, subscribe to catch new episodes. We keep it short and to the point.